Thank you. I will note we've had a member just join us. Would he care to introduce himself?
Yeah, hey, my name's Richie Floyd. I'm a city council member in St. Petersburg, and this is my first planning committee meeting.
Welcome, Councilmember Floyd. We will now move into the action items. First up, action item 4A. Do I have a motion to approve the March 18 meeting minutes?
Second.
Hearing a first and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Action item 4B. PSTA's Planning Director, Nicole Dufa, joined by Ford Pinellas, Executive Director Whit Blanton. Welcome, Whit. We'll go over the plans for PSTA's next premium transit corridor along US Alt 19, as well as an action item to start the preliminary design. Nicole, take it away, please.
Wonderful. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Planning Committee members. Nicole Dufa, Director of Planning and Scheduling here at PSTA. And as Chair mentioned, that I'm joined also today by Whit Blanton, Executive Director of Ford Pinellas, for our presentation on Alt 19. So we're excited to present to you about this project today on Alt 19, also known as Seminole Boulevard or Missouri, for the transit project that we hope to push forward. This is a very exciting project where we're hoping to bring more investment, higher investment to one of our highest ridership routes, as Devin presented just earlier, similar to what we did with the Sunrunner and the Spark. This corridor actually serves a much larger portion than the county than those previous corridors and those previous high investment transit projects did. So today, we have a robust agenda for you. We're really hoping to follow a very similar funding model for this corridor that we did for the Sunrunner, where we're going to be seeking a combination of both federal and state grant funding to support the capital portions of implementing this project. We know that there won't be any dedicated lanes for this project at all, but we're hoping to construct some bus pullouts and including technology to help make this bus route more premium and higher efficiency. We are also hoping today that you will recommend approval to take this first step towards qualifying the project for federal grant funding. This is a preliminary task order with HNTB, one of our general services consultants, for an amount not to exceed $300,000. This will be the step that we take before we request the USDOT to enter what they call project development phase, where we'll then move forward and have approval from the FTA to start design and engineering, getting ready for construction. So this is all of the work that will be necessary to show to the FTA that this project is viable for this community. Our agenda, I'll discuss a little bit of our project process to date, and then I'll invite Whit to come and talk more about Ford Pinellas' Advantage Alt 19 study that was completed in 2024, which really identified this corridor along Alt 19 as a priority investment corridor for transit. After Whit's presentation, I'll dive back into how this project really mirrors the steps that we took to get this, our first high investment route, the Sunrunner, to where it is today, as well as some next steps. I want to point out on this map, so you saw in Devin's presentation the Route 18, you can see that this corridor, different from the Sunrunner and the Spark, serves many other jurisdictions in the county, connecting robust job centers both in St. Petersburg as well as Clearwater and several municipalities in between, including the cities of Largo, cities of Seminole, as well as even Pinellas County. And it's actually more than double the length of the Sunrunner corridor. So some of the project process to date that has been completed, the 2045 long-range plan that was developed in 2018-2019 by Ford Pinellas, so this is the county's long-range transportation plan, identified a list of investment corridors where the Ford Pinellas really evaluated and saw potential to improve transit as well as increase land use to support more transit in these areas. We know that transportation is a constant challenge in our county, and this high investment corridor network really sets the stage for future planning work to improve transportation. Out of that plan became the Alt-19, Advantage Alt-19 study. So taking each of these investment corridors, Ford Pinellas wanted to study each one of them individually. So in 2024, they completed the Advantage Alt-19 plan that essentially geared us up to where we are today. And PSTA just recently completed a transit corridor analysis to identify this as a feasible route for premium transit investments. I'll now invite Whit to come up and talk a little bit more about that Advantage Alt-19 plan.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Whit Blanton with Ford Pinellas, and it's a pleasure to be here. I want to just set a little bit of context from the planning framework. And I've been planning in this county since 1989, first as a consultant and then as the MPO director since 2015. And back in the day, there wasn't a lot of coordination between the MPO and PSTA on land use and transportation planning. And so we really set out 10 years ago to really make a change. And this is a really good opportunity where it's coming to fruition. I'd like to just set a little context for you. Nicole mentioned the Advantage Pinellas 2045 long-range plan. The investment corridor strategy was really central to that. And what we started out really trying to accomplish was looking at ways that we could attract more transit riders to the transit system. We've made the investment in all the buses and all the infrastructure. How can we encourage more people to use the transit system? And generally speaking, that means making the service faster, more reliable, and more efficient. And to make the service faster, we envisioned a series of express bus routes with limited stops. And just by having fewer stops, you can have faster travel times. And so that really began with the Sunrunner as a first actual physical project. But the concept really dates to about 2018, 2019 as part of that long-range plan. And you can see the investment corridors on this map. And we ranked them in terms of their readiness and their ridership characteristics in priority order. And Alt-19 stood out as the top priority of all those corridors. And the focus here was to connect people to jobs and job training opportunities so that we can grow our economy, because there is a large segment of our population that isn't contributing fully to the economy because they lack transportation options, they lack access to job training opportunities. And in this corridor, we have all of those things. We have a lot of medical jobs, we have a lot of employment training opportunities, and the Route 18 has productive ridership already. What we set out to do in the Advantage Alt-19 study was really to look at how can we make that work from a land use perspective. So we, in 2019, as a background, we modified the countywide plan to enable local governments, should they choose to do so, to identify higher density development along these investment corridors. Largo has taken us up on that in the West Bay Drive Community Redevelopment District. And we'll see if other local governments want to do that as well. It's up to them. But this was one of the highest priority investment corridors because of the land use characteristics and the fact that it had a lot of underperforming land uses that maybe in the 1980s and 1990s were thriving as retail destinations. But with the changing face of retail, there's a lot of empty parking spaces and single story, a lot of vacancy in terms of some of those buildings. This is the second highest ridership route and really had the opportunity to connect with a lot of different services. So we really wanted to build a network of these higher frequency express limited stop services. By 2045, the Alt-19 corridor is expected to grow and have about additional 3,300 people, another 2,400 jobs, and about 4,000 households along the corridor do not own a vehicle and rely completely on transit or a ride from a friend. Nearly 60% of Pinellas County residents are cost burdened. This data has changed constantly, but in parts of the county, some households spend upwards of 70% of their income on housing and transportation. And with the cost of vehicle ownership dramatically rising, that number has climbed. So that's just a little bit of context of why we think this corridor is important, and we're happy to see the partnership with PSTA.
Thank you, Whit. All right, so We are very excited about working with Ford Pinellas on this, and I think it's really important work. I know we did this with the Sunrunner, TOD study that was completed in 2022, where we're looking at the land use in relation to fostering more increased transit use was really critical. And I know is getting ready to go through St. Pete City Council now as we speak. So as far as our route along Alt 19, we know, as Whit mentioned, there's a lot of potential redevelopment in this corridor, and as he said, the city of Largo is really looking now at implementing some of those land use changes and updates to help foster concentrate more growth in areas with increased transit service. And so we know that this corridor is really has a lot of potential for transit use. On Whit's slide, there was a map, I'll just quickly go back to it, where they've identified some opportunity nodes. So this is areas with redevelopment potential in particular. And so similar to that map, through our previous analysis, we've identified some potential locations for station areas based on the opportunity for redevelopment in those areas. The potential redevelopment being a little bit more dense, fostering more of that transit use. We know that traffic in this corridor is pretty robust, and allowing another option will be critical as that corridor grows. So some of the project components, we know that this is not going to be exactly like the Sunrunner. We're mirroring the Sunrunner process to get that federal funding as well as the state grant funding, and we'll be mirroring some of the components of the Sunrunner, similar to the level of service, wanting it to be frequent, 15-minute frequency, including some branded stations with vehicles as well, branded vehicles, but there will be no dedicated lanes on this project. Instead, we'll be looking at bus pull-out locations. I know that's something that a few of our county commissioners have identified as priorities, being able for the bus to pull out of the general traffic lane and serve the station. And we'll make sure that there is technology available to this project as well that will help improve the speed and efficiency of the service. All of this will still be finalized in a design and engineering process before we go to apply for CIG funding officially. And so these are all just potential components of the Alt 19 service. And as we noted, we hope to follow the same development process for the Sunrunner to be eligible for federal and state funding to support this project. So this slide is more of a comparison of how it'll follow a similar process that the Sunrunner did and what we anticipate for this corridor. Across the top of the slides here, we have 3 phases as defined by the U.S. Department of Transportation. So we have a pre-project development phase or an alternatives analysis phase, and then moving into project development, which requires approval from the FTA to enter, which would be design as well as engineering and NEPA analysis. And then pending award from the Capital Investment Grant Program funding, you can move into construction. So you can see on the next 2 lines, so the Sunrunner completed the pre-project development work in 2016 to 2018. It took about 2 years to get to that point of where we could request entry from the CIG FTA program. We're hoping that with this task order that you would recommend approval today, that should only take us about a year. For the Sunrunner, project development was completed in 2 years, between 2018 to 2020. In 2020 is when we received federal funding by notice of a tweet from current President Donald Trump during his first term, where he awarded PSTA. He said, "Congratulations on receiving a federal grant program funding to move into construction." And then construction took 2 years for the Sunrunner. Similar to those processes, if we are approved to enter project development, that should take us about 2 years to get to the point where we would then be eligible for construction grant program funding. It is a long process. We know that these projects do take some time, but because of the way that the process works, The FTA wants to make sure that these projects are best for the community, and so they ensure that we've done all of these diligent steps to get to that point. So for CIG funding, the primary reason that we follow this process is that's also what requires us, we're required to do this process to get and be eligible for their funding opportunity. For the Sunrunner, we were awarded about 50% of the project's funding under the Capital Investment Grant Program. And it paid for station construction as well as the buses. Also, the Sunrunner received 25% of a local match from the Florida Department of Transportation. They do tend to support these major capital investment projects, and they match 50% of the local side, so 25% of the total project funding. The remaining 25% was made up with support from the City of St. Petersburg. Thank you, Chair Sanders, for your support, FX Sanders, for your support on that project at the time, and as well as PSTA contributed to the local match as well. For Alt-19, we are looking at 50% grant program funding from the CIG. And we are still waiting to determine the funding allocations from the state as well as our local match. We have been in conversations with FTA as well as FDOT, and they're aware that we're working through these preliminary steps now, as well as working with our local jurisdictions, our local municipalities on these projects. We know our partners in the City of St. Pete are very supportive of this project. We've also been working with the City of Largo on their, as they progress through their land development updates, and knowing that premium transit is a key component of that success, and also hoping to engage more closely with the cities of Clearwater, as well as cities of Seminole, and then Pinellas County as well. And those funding partnerships could be based on the investments happening specifically in those jurisdictions. So, so far to date, this federal process is very detailed, and they do require certain design steps to be completed as we advance through to final design. So this slide outlines the tasks that have already been completed and what we would like to complete under this task order that is here for recommending for your approval today. And so to summarize, we are here in this pre-project development phase where we're requesting your approval for a task order for the preliminary design work with HNTB, one of our general services consultants, for an amount not to exceed $300,000 for our Alt-19 premium transit to reach project development phase for our capital investment grant program funding under the FTA.
Nicole, if I could just add one more thing real quick. I mentioned our 2045 long-range plan. That was adopted in 2019. The investment quarter framework was reaffirmed by our board in 2024 for the 2050 long-range plan. So it's now been in 2 consecutive long-range plans. And then this is also timely from a perspective of downtown Clearwater. The Pinellas County government is going to be entering into a request for negotiations with a potential master developer that they will be selecting likely by the end of the year. And so next year, we have an opportunity to work with that master developer on traffic and transportation configurations. Alt-19 feeds right into that, so the corridor works well from that standpoint. We are also working on the State Road 60 corridor with the Florida Department of Transportation. So there'll be 2 opportunities to really work on reconfiguring the sort of chaotic transportation network that we have in downtown Clearwater to support the goals of the city of Clearwater and the county with getting what it needs to out of the properties that it's going to be either selling or leasing. So I just wanted to add that context.
Thank you, Whit. Chair.
Great. Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Commissioner Albritton?
This has, in my opinion, been a long time coming because this corridor really has a lot of opportunity for development. I think it's a great thing that we're moving forward on this, so that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You were asking for approval, right?
Yes, we are asking for approval for a task order.
And Commissioner Hazelton?
Thank you. So is the branding on this going to be Sunrunner? I can field that. Amanda Baird, Director of Communications Marketing. It will not be Sunrunner, but the vision is that this will be the next runner. What it is running is likely going to be something corresponding to be north-south. So we're still exploring that, but it will be, the vision is for runners to be that level of
So it will be a BRT system
So
technically?
to qualify for capital investment grant program funding, this would be a BRT project.
Yes.
The BRT definition is evolving as we speak. It no longer requires dedicated lanes for the project to be considered BRT. So this would be a premium rapid transit project with similar type stations as well as.
So this is
yeah.
basically runner. Now we're changing it. I mean, this first time I've heard that we're gonna have a program known as Runner. And Sun Runner, Moon Runner,
That's
Land Runner, I mean, is
the
that?
vision for this, for the premium transit corridors, just from a branding perspective, was to, as I've been working with Nicole, to explore ideas for how to position this. Runner is just building that kind of, folks know what Sunrunner is, so having that affiliation, connection, helps people very quickly understand this is a premium transit option, similar to Sunrunner.
So the idea would be, you have in one of the slides branded stations, branded vehicles. So would the branding look like the same as
Similar, not identical.
but instead of saying sun, it might say something else? But
Correct.
the paint and the colors?
Similar but not identical, likely a different vehicle scheme. We are still in the very, very early preliminary stages, but yes, we are, branding is a heavy consideration with this route, as it was with Sunrunner,
Okay.
just to
So
help.
this is phase 2 of Runner concept. The concept is changing.
That's the current idea. I mean, as
Yeah.
Nicole's slide showed, we're 5 years away from,
Mhm.
totally confirming all that
Mhm.
at this stage, but the idea would be, yes, to have it separately.
Well, just in the sense of transparency, as far as understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the concept that these premium transit corridors would be specially branded, and the idea has been that, like, we have the Sunrunner, and then this would be something, like, we would just extend that runner sort of concept, but whether the colors and what it looks like and everything would
Mhm.
probably be very different.
Are you anticipating the same size buses, vehicles?
To be determined, I don't know. It would be dependent on the ridership
Mhm.
estimation and all that.
Mhm.
And the available buses that are available to
Mhm.
buy,
Okay.
yeah.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Fix Sanders.
I would hope it would be similar. There is such a thing that's called branding, and PSA has a brand. And with that being one of our products and one of our programs, in projects, I would hope that we would remain in the same color scheme with the same concept. Sunrunner has done such a phenomenal job in moving our visitors, tourists, residents to and from work, back beach to beach. And so, as they say, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So I'm hoping that we continue to have the same color scheme. I'm hoping that we continue to have that same mission to providing premium transportation service. So if for nothing else, I want to congratulate you all for being pro-thinkers in trying to provide the multimodal mission that we have with PSTA. So I like our color scheme. I like our looks of the Sunrunner. So I just had to throw that in there. I really do. I like it. Thanks, Chair.
Yes, Councilmember Floyd, sorry.
I just wanted to get clarity since we were getting into it a little bit, is, you mentioned like, the definition of BRT is changing. I think, I mean, I don't know if you wanna speak to that a little bit, but like, what I see here is just basically, more frequent service. Is that, and then I think you mentioned like more dedicated stations, which, but what, is that all that qualifies? Is that the main goal, as far as like more frequent service the main goal? I mean, that's what sounds good to me. I just am trying to
Yeah,
wrap my head around
absolutely.
it.
Thank you for the question,
Mhm.
Councilmember Floyd. So as far as the definition changing, it's just under what qualifies for federal funding.
Okay.
Is evolving to allow more opportunities to fund projects that may not be able to have things like dedicated lanes.
Mhm.
So yes, the higher frequency is critical to the premium transit being funded by the FTA, but in addition to that, it's how do we keep it moving faster? So the technology like TSP would be an important component to make this a more frequent route and keeping the travel times reduced. So that was one of the considerations from the FTA is how are we continuing to keep our travel times low especially in comparison to a local route. So the more further spaced stations as well as the stations similar to Sunrunner where you can pull up and go open the doors and go, load up and go, as well as the so the frequency, the stations, and the technology. So the technology is kind of the replacement for the dedicated lanes.
Okay, that makes sense, yeah. Yeah, the frequency, I think, is what I was thinking was most important. I know the city of St. Pete's invested in some technology in the corridor already.
Yeah.
So that makes sense as well. All right,
I think also just having fewer stops,
Yeah,
yeah,
the
more
stations.
limited stops, because your regular local route's gonna have a stop every quarter mile generally.
Yeah.
Or
yeah,
less.
yeah, that's true, yeah.
Right.
And more
Or
express
less.
service will have less stops, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Fix Sanders?
Oh.
I'm sorry.
She's
I
down
Call
there.
everybody that.
Right now.
I'm sorry.
Everybody's-
I'm gonna say this is the first meeting I've chaired. I'm in
Nice job.
over
You're
my
doing a
head
great
here.
job.
Thank
Don't
you.
worry
about it.
Commissioner Hazelden.
Thank you. The increased projected density. You mentioned that the increased intensification in the municipalities along the line is preferred. Largo has already approved densification. Personally, I think something like that should be on the ballot for the voters to approve. But aside from that, through what mechanism will this densification of households be achieved? Is that through rental property?
It'll probably vary based on the location and the market dynamics, but it'll be market driven, I presume.
Uh-huh.
And I want to clarify that it's not just density, it's also design and a mix of uses, a diversity of uses. So you've got to have all those Ds. You've got to have destinations, density, diversity, and design to create a more walkable environment. And that's what makes transit ridership, along with the frequency and the fewer stops for better speed. The countywide plan is the framework, and as I mentioned, on investment corridors, we've raised the threshold for what density limits and floor area ratio and intensity that local governments can not apply for, but can use. They can always go lower, they just can't go above those limits. In terms of the design characteristics, that's really up to the local government. We don't get involved at that. At Ford Pinellas, we provide guidance, and then we have consistency reviews. So we look to see if your plan is doing those things, and that really entails things like bringing the building closer to the front of the street, the entrance, reducing parking requirements in some cases. That's what St. Pete's looking at for the Sunrunner transit stations today. It could be just encouraging community assets rather than individual. So for instance, take landscaping requirements or stormwater requirements. Instead of making every parcel have a minimum landscape requirement or a minimum stormwater, you can maybe do it for the community, the area, and then that saves developers money. It makes it more attractive to create a more compact urban form in those areas, and that supports walkability. Again, that would be up to the local land development code that would be approved by a city commission or city council or a county commission.
Well, I would just like to, once again, request that this presentation be presented next week then to the board, to the complete board. Because it's a very important topic. Certainly, a lot of work's gone into it and long-range plan. And I think that it would be important for the entire board to to hear this and be able to have it as an action item? This is an action item, correct?
It is.
Yes.
Yes.
And yeah, we're planning on,
Yes, I'm planning to present this
Good.
presentation with WIT in partnership.
With,
Yeah.
that's great,
And
thank
the
you.
board.
I haven't seen the board agenda yet, so I don't think it's posted, so thank you.
And I think Councilmember Floyd wanted to respond
Yeah.
to Commissioner Hazel.
Very
Oh,
quickly, you mentioned like, is the density multifamily or how is it gonna be done? In St. Pete along this corridor, we've done, increased density with townhomes, so like it's not multifamily, it's still for purchase, like home ownership. I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Albritton had a question or comment.
Comment. I'd like to put in a name for premium fast transit. Why don't you just call it the Roadrunner? You know? Or smoke behind it.
Trademark issues on that.
Only if I can be Wile E. Coyote.
We are open to focus group and market researching any names at this very, very early stage, so.
Yeah, good. Any other questions or comments? In that case, my own quick comment is just that I'm glad we are talking about the connection between land use and transit, because I think that's very important, and I think a lot of people don't consider that enough. And that's how you get smart growth in a county like Pinellas, where it's so important, so thank you. With that being said,
Second.
we've got a motion on the table. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thanks, Nicole. Thank you, Whit.
Thank you.
Next up, agenda item 4C, FDOT easement amendment. Lucian Campillo, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Great. PSTA's Director of Project Management will talk about the necessary correction to PSTA's easement with FDOT at the Clearwater Station. Take it away.
Good morning, Chair. Good
Thank
morning,
you.
ladies and gentlemen of the committee. Just bringing a correction. As you may remember, we brought this easement to you in January. It was approved by the board. Based upon some corrections we identified after we filed it, council required an amendment to the original easement. Just to highlight that, some things that weren't maybe really apparent, the summary, it was really legal description corrections, and the basis of bearing was off on the original document. So nothing major. Once again, council required us to bring this amendment in front of the committee. So staff's recommendation is to approve an amendment to the FDOT sidewalk easement to correct the requested administrative changes identified after the original easement was filed. And
Okay.
pending any questions, that's all I have.
Great. Any questions or comments on this? I got a motion to
Second.
approve and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Campillo.
Thank you, sir.
Next up, any other business? Does any committee member have other business to bring before the committee at this time? Hearing none. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Next meeting is May 13th at 10:30 a.m. I will see you there. Thank you.
Sorry.